Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Saturday, February the 6th. Going to cover Saturday's 9-game slate, going to break it down team by team. We do have a 9-gamer on DK, but Yahoo, they're leaving out the 7 o'clock game between the Bulls and the Magic, so that's only on the DK slate. The Yahoo slate's actually 8 games, and it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern time, but we'll break each slate down, break it down team by team, go through everything, kind of give you guys my early interest, what I'm seeing the night before, what stands out to me looking at this slate on Friday night. But before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button down below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You will also get notified every time I do go live. I most likely will be live this afternoon for tonight's slate, so if you're able to tune in, I will be live streaming this afternoon, breaking down the slate once again, answering all your questions. If you're able to tune in, I will be live this afternoon. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's go ahead and break it down. So starting off with the Bulls and Magic game, we'll start off on the Bulls side. So obviously these teams did play on Friday night. They're playing once again on Saturday. Kind of the same thing on the Bulls side as, what I said Friday. Now, things are a little bit different. Lauri Markkanen did get injured in Friday's game, and he was not able to return, and they've already come out and said that he is unlikely to play. So Lauri Markkanen is most likely going to be out. Thaddeus Young, he's the guy that should benefit with Lauri Markkanen out, but I think he's too expensive on DraftKings. He's 6,600. I mean, at this price point, you need like 40 plus DK points from Thaddeus Young to be like a really good play at this price. And, sure, if he moves into the starting lineup, he's probably going to see a few more minutes. He should be productive when he's on the floor. I just don't know if I can pay 6,600 for Thaddeus Young. Just still doesn't look like that good of an option, even with Lauri Markkanen expected to be out. Zach LaVine, I'm not a big fan of. I don't really like much from the Bulls today. I think Patrick Williams should benefit with Lauri Markkanen out. He did play a good amount of minutes on Friday night in the same matchup, and he did play pretty well. I think if I was going to target anyone from the Bulls today, it would probably be Patrick Williams at 4,400. The minutes should be there. He's pretty cheap still. I feel like there's probably going to be better value open up as the day goes on. There are a ton of guys questionable on this slate, and we'll break it all down, but probably going to be better value open up. I guess Patrick Williams is fine as a cheap option though at 4,400. And maybe Denzel Valentine gets some more minutes as well. He played like 20 minutes Friday, had a decent game, but he's not that cheap at 4K. Really, I think the Bulls are kind of a team I'm not going to be that heavy on today. I don't have a ton of interest in them, even with Markkanen expect to be out. If I was going to target anybody, it would probably be Patrick Williams at only 4,400. But I think that kind of does it for the Bulls. Now on the Magic side, pretty much the same guys I talked about in Friday's video, I think are in play once again. Now they did get priced up a good amount, like Vooch. Obviously, I loved him on Friday's slate. He had a massive game. That was one of the things I managed to get right on Friday. I got a lot wrong Friday, but I did manage to get right. Vooch, I still stuck with him on both DK and Yahoo. He was in my lineup on both sides. He did get priced up to 8,900, but still, it's a great spot for Vooch. We saw him have a massive game Friday night. This Bulls team they're not good defensively at all. They play at a fast pace. Vooch had 77 DraftKings points in 37 minutes. Obviously, we can't expect that again, but we're going to get 36, 37 minutes from Vooch if it's a close game. He's a very productive player when he's on the floor. The usage is through the roof right now without Aaron Gordon and, without Markelle Fultz. Jonathan Isaac's still not healthy, so definitely have interest in Vooch even with the price coming up. I think he is still viable on this slate. There's some other guys I like at the center position that are cheaper, but Vooch is definitely viable. Evan Fournier, I don't think I'm really going to be going to him on this slate. I think his price, 6,400. There's just so many other guys I like in the 6K range today that we'll talk about later. Kind of the same with Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony did have a pretty decent game on Friday night. I believe he had like 36 DraftKings points. He was pretty solid. I think he did have a double-double, or maybe he came like one assist shy of a double-double, but he did have a really good game in this matchup. His price is still reasonable at 5,700. He's kind of, I wouldn't say he's overpriced, but it's not like a great price point for Cole Anthony. Like, nobody from the Magic stands out today as top plays outside of Nikola Vucevic for me. Terrence Ross, I had interest in on Friday night. He was absolutely terrible once again. He played 30 minutes, but he just didn't do anything. I mean, Terrence Ross is just, after Friday night, I can't play this dude. It's just so hard to predict what he's going to do on a nightly basis. So I think that does it for the Magic. Vooch is the guy that really stands out in this game overall. I think, we can definitely look to go back to him on this slate. But moving on to the 8 o'clock games, Starting off with the Raptors and the Hawks. So the Raptors, they are on a back-to-back today, and there's a lot of teams on back-to-backs. So obviously the Bulls and Magic, they're on a back-to-back because they played Friday. We'll talk about the Bucks and the Cavs. They're on a back-to-back. They also played Friday. But yeah, starting off with the Raptors here, we saw a couple of the Raptors, definitely Lowry and Siakam have really good games Friday night against the Nets. When this team is fully healthy, it's just tough to predict which one of these guys is going to put up the big game on a nightly basis. I think the most appealing is probably Pascal Siakam just because he's the cheapest of the three. He's only $7,700. It is a pretty good matchup against the Hawks. The Hawks have been better defensively this year, but they still do play a middle-of-the-pack pace. It's still a pretty good matchup, so I have some interest in Siakam. Norman Powell's price, though, is too high for me. If I was going to play Norman Powell, I think it would once again, be over on Yahoo where he's still pretty affordable, $20. I think Norman Powell definitely viable over there. But Chris Boucher had a pretty good game. Finally, he was solid off the bench Friday night against the Nets. I think he played. Can't remember how many minutes he played, but I know he had a decent game. In a matchup against the Hawks, maybe Chris Boucher gets more minutes. Aaron Baines was kind of in foul trouble. He didn't get a ton of minutes Friday night. The Hawks do have. They're kind of a big team. They have Clint Capella. They have John Collins. I don't know if this sets up more for a Boucher type game or an Aaron Baines type game. I would think going up against Clint Capella, you would want Aaron Baines out there, but these guys aren't really top plays anyway. Really nobody stands out from the Raptors, even though it is a good matchup. I don't think anyone stands out as a top play for me. I'm not going to be going out of my way to play any of these guys. I think Siakam is the most appealing, given he's the cheapest of the big three. But I don't really like anyone, from the Raptors as top plays. So I think we can go ahead and move on to the Hawks side. So the Hawks are a team we're going to have to pay attention to when it comes to injuries. So Trae Young is currently questionable for this game. He sat out their last game, and Kevin Huerter's probable. He's expected to play. But the big one is Trae Young. Trae Young questionable. So if Trae Young is out, we saw Rajon Rondo get the start last game, and he played 28 minutes, but he just wasn't productive at all. Only had 8 assists and 6 rebounds in those 28 minutes, was 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3, only had 19.5 DK points. Rondo got priced up to $4,100. I think if Trae Young is out again, Rondo's still in play as a value. I don't know if he's going to be a smash value play. I don't know if he's going to be a guy just kind of lock and load, but definitely would be someone I'd have interest in. If Trae Young plays, though, I don't have a ton of interest in this team overall. I think everyone's kind of appropriately priced. It's not that good of a matchup. I guess Trae Young himself could be viable because he's pretty affordable at $9,500, but I don't really like much from the Hawks today. If Trae Young's out, though, we can definitely look to go back to Rondo, but I don't think Rondo is going to be the best value on the slate. I think there's probably going to be better value that opens up as the day goes on. So we can go ahead and move on to the next game, the Bucks and the Cavs. These teams also played on Friday night, so this is a back-to-back for both of these teams. They're not having to travel or anything, but it at least is worth noting that it is a back-to-back. But like I said in Friday's video, and I'm going to say it once again, whenever the Bucks are fully healthy, I don't have interest in really anyone on the team outside of Giannis. I think Giannis is someone we can definitely look to go back to today. He did have a pretty good game Friday night, as you would expect. 33 minutes, 64 Draftkings points in this same matchup. As long as the game's close, I'd expect similar numbers from Giannis today. I would assume that he plays here on the back-to-back. I think he's played on back-to-backs this year. But, it's a winnable game against Cleveland. I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis rests, but just something to monitor. I assume he plays, and if he does, Giannis is definitely viable. He's still not a top option for me. There are some other studs that I really like on the slate, specifically the Brooklyn guys. With Brooklyn missing Kevin Durant, that's going to open up some spend-up options that we want to target from Brooklyn. But yeah, Giannis is always viable. You could definitely go back to him on this slate. 11K, have no problems with him, especially if a lot of value opens up and it's easy to get him in. But moving on to the Cleveland side. So Cleveland, I think given the pricing here, specifically to Andre Drummond looks really appealing on the slate. I know he wasn't great in this matchup Friday. He didn't have that good of a game. He played 30 minutes, only had 38 DK points, 18 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. The price tag just keeps coming down on Drummond. It's DraftKings is just tempting you to roster him at this point. And it's hard for me to not have interest in Drummond when he's only $7,900. I know he's not getting the massive minutes that he was playing earlier this year, but still, in 30, 32 minutes, Andre Drummond can put up 50-plus DraftKings points any night. I like him a lot at $7,900. The price just keeps coming down. I think he's definitely too cheap on this slate. I like him on both sides. He is pretty cheap on Yahoo as well. Only $37 over there. I think Drummond definitely looks appealing at that Yahoo price. He's by far my favorite guy to go to from the Cavs. We'll need to monitor the status of Larry Nance. I believe he is questionable for this game. He did not play Friday. We'll have to keep an eye on his status. I think even if he's out, that doesn't really affect too much. that made me feel a little bit better about Drummond if Larry Nance were to be out again. But outside of Drummond, I don't really like much from the Cavs outside of him. Really, no one else on this team looks that appealing. So I think that does it for this game. Moving on to the Spurs and Rockets. So this is a very appealing game and one we're going to have to keep an eye on in terms of injuries. We already know that LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be out. He was out last game. He's going to be out again. Lonnie Walker is going to be out as well. So this is a kind of a big injury. Lonnie Walker was playing about 20, 25 minutes a game. So those minutes are going to be scattered to other guys. I'd assume you see Derek White pick up some minutes. Maybe Devin Vassell pick some minutes. So we will talk about those guys. But a big one here is Dejounte Murray is questionable. So this is a really big injury to watch. If we get a scenario where Dejounte Murray is out, that's going to give us some really good value from San Antonio. Derek White for 4,700 would be a great value play. I'd assume he start. Patty Mills would pick up a lot more minutes, especially since Lonnie Walker's out. He'd be a strong value play as well at 4,200. So definitely got to keep an eye on the status of Dejounte Murray. But starting off with DeMar DeRozan, I like DeRozan a lot last slate when LaMarcus Aldridge was ruled out. He played 40 minutes in that game against Minnesota, had a big game, 48 DraftKings points. His price only went up $300. I think DeRozan, once again, looks like a really good play on this slate. I like him quite a bit on both sides. He is definitely still too cheap on both sides, $7,200 on DK, only $32 on Yahoo. I think that looks like an appealing price tag for DeRozan as well. Just with Aldridge off the floor this season, he sees a big spike in his usage rate. His fantasy point per minute average has been way better with Aldridge off the floor. It's a good matchup against Houston. Houston's been good defensively this year, but they do still play at a pretty fast pace. So I like DeRozan quite a bit, and I'm going to like him even more if Dejounte Murray is out. So definitely have interest in DeMar DeRozan. I think if Dejounte Murray plays at 6,800, he does look pretty appealing on the slate. He had 44 DK points in 30 minutes last game. With LaMarcus Aldridge out, he's another guy that should benefit with Aldridge off the floor. Should see a few more minutes as well with Lonnie Walker out. So really do like Dejounte Murray if he's able to play today. I think he's going to be lower owned than he should be, given that he's questionable and we don't really know if he's going to play. I do like him quite a bit in tournaments. Jakob Poeltl, we saw him have a big game in the starting lineup, replacing Aldridge. 34 minutes, 40 DraftKings points. Price came up to $5,800, so I'm a bit hesitant to go to Poeltl today. I don't like him nearly as much now that his price is way up. Plus, it is a pretty scary matchup against DeMarcus Cousins. This is definitely a matchup where Jakob Poeltl could probably get into some foul trouble. I would definitely rather target Cousins, who's only a couple $100 more. So I don't really have much interest in Poeltl with the price coming up. Keldon Johnson, I don't love at $5,800. I think he's definitely viable. He was terrible last game, but I would expect him to play much better here. His price did come down a little bit, so he's fine, but not my top option from San Antonio. Definitely prefer DeRozan. Definitely prefer Dejounte Murray. But yeah, Derek White, Patty Mills, both of these two guys are going to look like great values today if Dejounte Murray winds up out. So Derek White, he's been getting around 22, 25 minutes a game. I would assume that his minutes definitely see an increase if Murray is out. And I think even with Lonnie Walker out, we probably see White play maybe 26, 28 minutes. I think because Lonnie Walker's already been ruled out, that Derek White's in play for value. Obviously, I'm going to like him a lot more if Murray's out as well. But even at 4,700, if we're going to get close to 30 minutes from Derek White with Lonnie Walker out, I think he is a pretty good value play on the slate. He is still pretty cheap on DK. I think he's still cheap on Yahoo as well. What's his Yahoo price? Derek White is $17 on Yahoo, so that's pretty appealing. I definitely have interest in Derek White today. Obviously going to like him more if Murray's out. Patty Mills, I think, probably only going to go there if Dejounte Murray's out. Maybe you could target him with Walker out, but I would prefer for Dejounte Murray to be out before I go to Patty Mills. But Mills is another guy that would benefit in that backcourt. I mean, they would be down 2 starting guards, so that's just going to leave a ton of minutes to be soaked up by Patty Mills and Derek White. So got to keep an eye on the status of Murray. Obviously, really big news. Patty Mills, I think, is in play if Murray's out. I think Derek White's in play regardless, though, given that Lonnie Walker's out. And, maybe Devin Vassell picks up a few more minutes with Lonnie Walker out. He's really cheap, $3,300. Kind of like a GPP dart throw, a guy you could have some exposure to. But I think the guys we really are going to want to target from San Antonio are obviously DeRozan, Murray if he plays, Derek White, and then if Murray's out, Patty Mills and Derek White become even better options. But yeah, I think that does it for San Antonio. Now moving on to the Houston side. Houston, another team we're going to have to watch today in terms of injuries. We already know that Christian Wood is going to be out for this game. He got injured in their last game, and I believe he's going to be out for like a week or two. So, we're going to talk about DeMarcus Cousins, who looks like a great play on the slate. Victor Oladipo at 8,200. I have some interest in, given that Christian Wood is out. I think Oladipo does get a little bump in usage with Christian Wood off the floor. His price did go up to 8,200 though, so he's not like a top play for me. We will need to watch the status of John Wall, though. Obviously, this is a really big injury. John Wall is questionable. If he were to sit, I would have more interest in Oladipo. Eric Gordon would become a really good play as well at 5,800. But the number one guy from Houston today is definitely DeMarcus Cousins. So at 6,300 on DK, $16 on Yahoo. I mean, Cousins, especially that Yahoo price, I mean, he is a lot for me on Yahoo. And I think even over 6K on DraftKings, like, he is still a smash play. We've seen this scenario before. Whenever Cousins gets starts in place of Christian Wood, he just goes out there and he smashes. He's going to play, a good amount of minutes. We saw this stretch of games when Christian Wood was out. Cousins started, played 33, 30, 33 minutes, 36, 58, 50 DraftKings points. I mean, the guy's going to just stuff the stat sheet when he's on the floor. Boogie, at this point in his career, may not be, the elite player that he used to be, but he can still stuff the stat sheet for fantasy when he gets minutes, and the minutes should be there with him starting now and with Christian Wood out. At 6,300, like, DraftKings obviously bumped up his price, but they didn't bump it up enough. Like, he should be 8K when he's starting and playing 30 minutes a night. Like, there's no reason for Cousins to still be just 6,300. So he, clearly stands out as one of the better plays on the slate for me. Definitely my number one guy to target from Houston. But if John Wall's out, I'd have interest in Oladipo. I'd have interest in Eric Gordon. Not really much else stands out from Houston, though. I don't really like anyone else on this team. So we can go ahead and move on to the next one, Minnesota and OKC. So these two teams also played on Monday. They're on Friday, excuse me. They played Friday. These teams are on back-to-back. Obviously, there's no travel or anything, but it is something to monitor, especially on the OKC side. But starting off with Minnesota, we'll need to keep an eye on the status of D'Angelo Russell. I believe he's rested on some back-to-backs this year. I assume he plays today, but at least something to monitor. Russell, if he does play, is 7,200. He doesn't really look like a top option. I mean, he was solid Friday night against OKC in this matchup, had 37 DK points in 31 minutes. Price went up a little bit, though, on DK, up to 7,200. Doesn't really look like a top option for me. I don't think there's anyone from Minnesota that stands out as like a core play. They're all kind of priced appropriately, in my opinion. Like, Naz Reid's price came up a little bit. Ricky Rubio, even if Russell were to sit or something, like, Rubio's not that cheap at 5,200. I don't really like much from Minnesota. They're probably going to be a team I just kind of avoid today. I think if I was going to play anyone, it would probably be on Yahoo. If you look over there, D'Angelo Russell coming in at $25. I think he does look pretty appealing at that Yahoo price. I did play him in my Yahoo lineup on Friday. Not saying I'm going to play him again, but $25 is pretty cheap for D'Angelo Russell. That's probably where I like him the most, is on Yahoo. But we can go ahead and move on to the OKC side. So this is a big team to watch in terms of injuries. We know George Hill is going to remain out, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Theo Maledon, which was kind of unexpected. Theo Maledon was like a late addition to the injury report. He got ruled out, I believe, around like 5:30 Eastern time. Was really unexpected, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Theo Maledon, and Lou Dort all were out Friday night. We don't know their status for Saturday. Right now, Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Maledon, they're all questionable, I guess. So if this team is fully healthy, if SGA, Maledon, and Dort all play, I really don't like anyone on this team. I'm probably just going to be avoiding the Thunder as a whole if they all play. Maybe SGA himself could be viable. He's only 7,400. His price came down a little bit. If he's not limited, he could be someone we consider. But obviously, if we do get a scenario like we had on Monday or on Friday night, where there was only 8 available players for the Thunder. So on Friday night, Horford, Bazley, Diallo, Williams, Jackson, Muscala, Roby, and Miller. Those were the only 8 players that were active for the Thunder Friday night. If we get a scenario where those are the only 8 active players again, then I'm definitely going to like these Thunder guys if they have to run an 8-man rotation. I think even at 5,900, Hamidou Diallo would still look like a really good play. I think Bazley would definitely be viable. I think Horford's would be a good play as well. Horford smashed on Friday night, had 57 DK points in 29 minutes. I'd like him quite a bit if all those guys are out again, even at 6,500. We'd get some value here. Kendrick Williams started. He was pretty bad, but he played 36 minutes in the starting lineup. I'd assume he'd get a ton of minutes again. The bench guys we could go to as well, like Darius Miller. He's dirt cheap. I know he didn't play a ton of minutes, but maybe we could consider him in tournaments. Isaiah Roby, though, would probably be the best value from OKC. He actually moved into the starting lineup. He played 34 minutes, had 34 DK points. If he winds up starting again, if SGA, Dort, Maledon, if all those guys are out again and Roby starts at 3,700, he's going to be a great value play. So we just got to keep an eye on this. This is one of the big teams to watch for Saturday slate is the OKC guys, SGA, Maledon, Dort. If they all sit again, We're going to have an 8-man rotation once again for OKC, and there's going to be a lot of viable plays from the Thunder. Basically, all 8 guys would be viable. I think Roby would probably be my favorite, followed by Diallo. Those would definitely be like the 2 priorities. I think Horford's probably my 3rd favorite. But we just got to wait and see here. Tough to break it down, when we don't know the status of these guys. But moving on to the next one, Brooklyn and Philly. So Brooklyn, a very appealing team on the slate, which is normally not the case. But we have a scenario today where Kevin Durant has already been ruled out. It was really weird Friday night. So Friday night, literally, the game's getting ready to tip off, and we get word that Kevin Durant is not starting, that he's going to come off the bench, and then we get word that he had like some issue with his, COVID testing or something, and there was a chance that he wasn't even going to play. He ultimately wound up playing off the bench. I believe he played like the first half, and then he had to get pulled from the game, and he's ultimately not going to play in this game. I'm assuming right now this game's going to play, but given, the issues they had last night, I wouldn't be surprised if they have to postpone this one, so just keep an eye on it. Assuming it does play, though, with Kevin Durant out, James Harden, Kyrie Irving both look like great plays today. I think these are 2 of the better spend-up options on this slate. Both Harden and Irving get massive boosts with Kevin Durant off the floor. Those are going to be the 2 guys you see dominating the usage tonight. I think both are great spend-up options. If I have to choose one, though, I think I do prefer Kyrie, given that he is $1,300 cheaper. I like him quite a bit on both sites, $9,400 on DK. Pretty affordable on Yahoo as well at $43. I think with Kevin Durant out, Kyrie Irving is definitely my number 1 stud option on this slate. Just going to get all the usage. His usage rate is through the roof with Kevin Durant off the floor. He's played like 100 minutes with KD off, and he's averaged like, it's insane, like 1.6 fantasy points per minute. I expect him to be insanely productive. I know the matchup isn't great against Philly, but the usage, it's going to be dominated by Harden and Irving. Like, those are going to be the 2 guys doing everything. I could definitely see playing both those guys together tonight. I could see a scenario where if this game is close, you get, 60-plus from both Irving and Harden. Like, they both have massive ceilings here. I like both of them a ton. I think I do prefer Irving, given he's $1,300 cheaper. But obviously, James Harden you can look to as well. He gets a big boost with KD off the floor. He's much more expensive, but definitely has the upside now that Durant is out. But like Jeff Green, I think gets a little boost with Kevin Durant out. He moved back to the bench on Friday night, but he still played 30 minutes off the bench. I'd assume whether he starts or comes off the bench, he's going to get probably 30 to 32 minutes. He's definitely viable on the slate. Bruce Brown, he started last time Kevin Durant was out. I'd assume he gets to start again. At $3,500, if Bruce Brown does wind up starting, I don't expect him to be too insanely productive in the starting lineup, because obviously playing alongside, Harden and Kyrie Irving, you're not going to be that productive. You're obviously not going to get much usage playing alongside those 2 guys, but dirt cheap, $3,500. I assume if he starts, he probably plays around 30 minutes. Definitely would be viable as a cheap option. So there's a lot to like from Brooklyn tonight. Obviously, Kyrie and Harden are the 2 main priorities for me, but Jeff Green's viable. Even Joe Harris could be viable, and I do have some interest in Bruce Brown as well, assuming he starts. DeAndre Jordan, like, you would think this would maybe be a game where he'd get minutes. Like, they're going to need his size against Joel Embiid, but assuming Joel Embiid plays. But when they played Philly earlier this year, he only played 18 minutes. So I guess I don't really want to go to DeAndre Jordan. So I think that kind of does it for Brooklyn. Now, moving on to the Sixers side, another team that's dealing with some injuries on this slate. Joel Embiid is currently questionable for this game. He played their last game, got injured, came back into the game, and ultimately finished the game, but he's questionable for today. Ben Simmons, although he's listed as questionable, he's actually probable. So Ben Simmons is expected to play, but Joel Embiid is questionable, and Seth Curry is also questionable. He had to leave their game last time out, did not return with an illness. We'll have to keep an eye on his status, but the big one here is the status of Joel Embiid. So if Joel Embiid plays today, I actually have a good amount of interest in him as a pay-up option. Now, obviously, it's tough because I really like Drummond and I really like Cousins. Obviously, you can't play those 3 guys. Like, you can't play Drummond, Cousins, and Embiid because, you don't have enough center spots for that. But maybe in some lineups where I don't have both of those 2 centers, I could definitely look to get exposure to Joel Embiid. It is a great matchup against Brooklyn. Brooklyn's always been a team that struggled defensively against centers, against big men. I know Embiid had a pretty bad game against the Nets earlier this year, but I'm not really looking into that. This is definitely a matchup where Embiid should have a ton of success. He's dominated the usage this year from the Sixers. He's been insanely productive on a point-per-minute basis. I do like him quite a bit as a spend-up option. I don't really have much interest in anyone else, though, from the Sixers outside of Embiid if he plays. Like with Seth Curry out, maybe Korkmaz gets a start. He actually started last game, and he played 38 minutes. He had 25 DK points. I mean, he could be a fine punt value if Seth Curry's out. Maybe Shake Milton moves into the starting lineup. He could be a fine value option, but nobody stands out as a top play from the Sixers outside of Embiid. But if Embiid winds up out, then yeah, I like Ben Simmons a lot more. I like Tobias Harris a lot more. Obviously, either Dwight Howard or Tony Bradley would be a pretty good value. Last time Embiid was out, it was Tony Bradley who started. He only played he didn't play many minutes though. He played 23 minutes. No, it wasn't. I don't even think it was that game. It was the Pacers game. He started, played 17 minutes, had 10 DraftKings points. I don't know what kind of scenario we would get here. It seems like they want to keep Bradley with the first unit and keep Howard on the bench. So I would assume that Tony Bradley starts again, but Dwight Howard had a big game off the bench when we had this scenario, last time Embiid was out. I mean, I think both guys could be viable. I'm going to prefer whichever one starts. So if Howard starts, I like him as a value. If Bradley starts, I like him as a value. Just going to be something to monitor. It's really hard to break down the Sixers team when we don't know the status of Joel Embiid. So we're going to have to watch that heading into Saturday night slate. But we can go ahead and move on to the next game. We got 3 more on the slate. So Golden State and Dallas. On the Golden State side, this is a pretty appealing team just because they're another one that's dealing with injuries. James Wiseman, Kevon Looney both remain out for this game. We know Marquise Chris, Klay Thompson obviously going to be out. Eric Pascal is questionable. That'll be something to monitor. He sat out last game. We saw Juan Toscano-Anderson get the start. He played a ton of minutes. I think Toscano-Anderson's going to be a good value play regardless, but we'll mention him in a second. Curry at the top for 9,700. Not my favorite stud on this slate. I think I definitely prefer the Brooklyn guys over Steph Curry. I probably prefer Embiid. I like Drummond. Don't really like Curry a ton on this slate. I think Kelly Oubre is viable at 6,200. He obviously had a massive game last time out, played 36 minutes, had 59 DraftKings points. Oubre is definitely getting a bump right now given, just how thin the Warriors are. They don't have a ton of healthy bodies. We saw Oubre have to play a ton of minutes. I'd assume he gets big minutes once again. So he would be viable. Draymond Green started at center last game and was really productive. Played 29 minutes, had 42 DraftKings points. He was on pace to play way more, but the game blew out. He didn't get any run in the fourth quarter. It seems like Draymond's going to be getting big minutes moving forward, especially with all these bigs out for the Warriors. So if we're getting over 30 minutes from Draymond, even at 6K, if he's starting at center, he has upside, and we've seen kind of vintage Draymond these last few games, triple-double upside, contributing in all categories, getting you defensive stats. I do have interest in Draymond at 6K. I think he is a really strong play from the Warriors. I like him and Oubre both a good amount. And I think Juan Toscano-Anderson looks like a really good value once again. 4,200 on DK, still pretty cheap. He's still pretty cheap on Yahoo as well. Looking at the power forward position, he's only $12 over there. I definitely like Juan Toscano-Anderson on both sides. He started last game, played 40 minutes, had 35 DK points. Especially if Eric Pascal remains out, Juan Toscano-Anderson's just going to play a ton of minutes. He's basically going to play. He's going to play as much as he can because they don't really have any other healthy bodies. I think they had a 9-man rotation last game. If Pascal remains out, they'll have 9 bodies once again. So I'm assuming Toscano-Anderson starts. He probably gets over 30 minutes easily. If Pascal is out again, he might play close to 40 minutes. He should be somewhat productive when he's on the floor. He was pretty productive last game. He's still pretty cheap. I like Juan Toscano-Anderson once again as a value play. I think he does look like a pretty strong value right now. Maybe some better value will open up as the day goes on, but I think as a first look, JTA looks like a pretty strong value play. But I think that really does it for the Warriors. If Eric Pascal plays, I don't have that much interest in him. I think I definitely would rather play Toscano-Anderson at the same price. It seems like his minutes are just way more secure right now than Pascal. Maybe off the bench you could consider a guy like Kent Bazemore. He was pretty solid in limited minutes, but it doesn't seem like he's going to get a ton of minutes, so he's even hard to trust. So, yeah, I think from the Warriors, my favorite guys for sure are Kelly Oubre, Draymond Green, and Juan Toscano-Anderson, and I think I'd rank them probably factoring in price, Juan Toscano-Anderson number 1, Green number 2, Oubre number 3, but all 3 guys I have interest in on this slate. So that does it for the Warriors. Now moving on to the Dallas side. So with the Mavericks here, this is usually a team I don't have much interest in outside of the top 2 guys. I think Luka, he's a fine pay-up option. He is pretty expensive, $11,100. There's obviously a lot of good stud options on the slate outside of Luka, so I think Luka's just more of kind of a secondary guy, not someone I'm really going to be jamming in on this slate. Kind of the same with Porzingis. At his price, his price rose up to 8,200. Nobody from the Mavericks stands out as a top play. Maxi Kleber, he started last game, but he only played 20 minutes. It's just hard to tell what we're going to get from Maxi Kleber. I don't really like much from the Mavericks at all. I think if I had to play someone, it would probably be Porzingis, just because, the Warriors just don't have any bigs right now. Porzingis only played 25 minutes last game, but he was really productive, had 41 DK points in that time. I do expect him to be very productive in this matchup. It's just that the price, did come up to 8,200. If I have to choose anyone from Dallas, it's going to be Porzingis because I like the matchup a lot. I mean, like, the Warriors don't have anyone to guard him. I mean, their tallest player, I think, is Kelly Oubre, and he's like 6'7". Like, they just don't have any bigs on their roster right now. With Draymond Green starting at center, that just shows you they don't have really any bigs, and I don't think they have any bigs coming off the bench either. Like, basically their centers are Draymond Green and Eric Pascal if he plays. Like, those will be the guys playing center for the Warriors. So, yeah, really good matchup for Porzingis. I think he's my favorite guy to go to from the Mavs if I have to choose anyone. But we can go ahead and move on to the next game, Memphis and New Orleans. So Memphis, not a team that I have much interest in today at all. Ja Morant, he's been really bad lately, man. It's hard to watch. Like, he hasn't been good for DFS at all. The minutes haven't been there either. Even in close games, he's only playing 28, 30 minutes. His price is still high. I don't really like Ja Morant at his price. I'm sure at some point he's going to pop off and have a big game, but, good luck predicting when it happens. I've been chasing the Ja Morant game, and it just hasn't happened yet. Joe Val is expected to return here, but he hasn't played in, almost 3 weeks, so who knows how his minutes are going to look like. He'll probably be on a minutes restriction. Can't really play him on this slate. I guess we will need to watch the status of Brandon Clark. So Brandon Clark is currently questionable. If he were to sit, I don't really know who would start. I'd assume maybe, I don't really know what they would do. Maybe they start Xavier Tillman alongside Joe Val. Maybe they start a guard and just move everybody down. Maybe DeAnthony Melton starts at shooting guard and then they move Dylan Brooks down to small forward and let Anderson play power forward. I don't really know. So we maybe could get some value from Memphis if Brandon Clark winds up out, and maybe someone like a DeAnthony Melton or a Desmond Bane starts, they could maybe be a value. But Memphis, this team just doesn't look that appealing today. There's not really anyone that stands out as a top play. I mean, Kyle Anderson should get a boost if Brandon Clark's out, but he just hasn't been getting a ton of minutes either. The minutes, it's just so weird how Memphis is, doing their rotations right now and how they're just divvying up the minutes. Nobody's getting big minutes, which just makes them all hard to trust for DFS. So we can go ahead and move on to New Orleans. New Orleans, not a team that I have much interest in either. I don't really like this game at all. On the New Orleans side, Zion, Brandon Ingram, they both have plenty of upside. They could both, pop off any night, but, good luck predicting when that's going to happen. They're both over 8K as well. They're not that cheap either. I don't like anything from the Pelicans. Nobody stands out as a top option. Their price tags, given the price, nobody looks like a great play. Maybe if Lonzo was 5K, I'd have more interest in him, but at 6K, he's just a mediocre play at that price. Same with Eric Bledsoe, same with Steven Adams. This game just not that appealing for me. I don't really like much on either side, which is crazy given I feel like if this game was played last year, this would be a 240 total, but both of these teams are playing slower this year. Just not that appealing of a game overall on this slate. So moving on to the late night hammer, the Pistons and the Lakers. Another game that doesn't look that appealing. On Detroit, Derrick Rose sat out Friday. I assume he plays today, so he should be back. Wayne Ellington was out Friday. We'll have to monitor his status. Even if he's out, I don't think that's going to affect too much. But this is a back-to-back for the Pistons, so we will need to monitor the status of Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, I believe, has been resting on all their back-to-backs this year. Very likely that Blake Griffin is out tonight, so that would give a little bump to Jeremy Grant, a little bump to Mason Plumlee. Maybe Josh Jackson finally starts. I thought he would have been started, with all these guys out, but it just seems like they want to keep him off the bench. I assume if Blake Griffin does rest, that they probably start Sadiq Bey. 3,300, he's near minimum salary. Maybe Sadiq Bey could be a value if he starts for Blake Griffin, but I just don't really want to go to anyone on the Pistons. It's a bad matchup. It's a slow-paced game. It has blowout potential. Nobody on the Pistons looks like a top play today. It's just not that appealing of a team overall on the slate. And on the Lakers side, when this team is fully healthy, LeBron and AD are the guys I have the most interest in, but on this slate, neither one looked like top plays. There's just so many other studs I like. I don't really want to go to any other Lakers. I know Talen Horton-Tucker had a big game off the bench last game, 22 minutes, 31 DK points, but I don't really want to chase that. Maybe he could get 22 minutes again, especially if it's a blowout, which obviously this game has blowout potential, but I really don't want to chase that. I don't like anything from this game. I don't like any Lakers. Nobody from the Pistons stands out. Just going to be a fade for me for sure. These two late night games, I don't have much interest in at all. So I think that does it for all 9 games. I think we broke everything down team by team, guys. I hope you did enjoy this video. I do appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, hit that like button down below. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You also get notified every time I do go live. And like I said earlier, I should be live this afternoon, probably around 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be live for tonight's slate, break everything down, answer all your questions. We'll break down all the news as well. Any news that comes out throughout the day, we'll be able to touch on it in the live stream. But yeah, tune into the live stream if you're able to this afternoon. Best of luck on the slate, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Good luck, guys.